down here in the woods of Schuyler County, changing out trail cam. Well, as normal, this is a midweek devotion from the Littleton United Methodist Church, and what you're watching now is a little clip, about a minute of Schuyler County nature that I put in every week. So enjoy yourself with the nature. Let's see if the trail cam showed anything, and then when I come back, we'll have our devotion for the week. We started our new class on critical thinking for Christians last night. Had a good turnout. Want to give a shout out to Carrie Woodside. She made sure none of us went away hungry last night, and I'm thankful. I brought some popcorn, but after that, all the other stuff she brought, and we're grateful. Now, I know that several people expressed an interest in the class last night, but said they couldn't attend because they had to work, they had other meetings, they had conflicts going on, and they kind of wanted to know what we were doing. So on these Wednesdays, for the next few weeks while that class is going on, I'm just going to give you a few of the highlights that we discussed in class to kind of keep you up to date. Then if you're able to come some Tuesday night at 6:30 there at the Littleton United Methodist Church, you're welcome. If you're not able to, you won't kind of lose track of what we're doing. You can kind of keep up with us. Unusual. It's not the way we usually have these midweek devotions, but it works. Oh, that's also why they're coming a little bit later for the next few weeks. Usually early, very early, sometimes 12:01 a.m. on Wednesdays. I publish these, post them, but I'm going to wait until later in the day on Wednesday, because I want to share with you some of the highlights of the Tuesday night. We live in a world where free thinking is not encouraged. And where a great many people feel a little bit intimidated and afraid to try out their ideas for fear that they'll step on somebody's toes or make somebody mad. Almost every area of life we fight over. We fight over politics, we fight over the economy, we have a disease comes through like COVID, and we fight over COVID. We fight over religion, we fight over just about everything there is to fight over. And sometimes one side will have ding, 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 these views, another ding, 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 these views. And if you happen to have ding, 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 whoops, over here on this one, you learn pretty quickly to keep quiet and to go with the herd. So that's one of the reasons that we are talking about critical thinking for Christians. We as Christians, we certainly are not exempt from following the herd on this side or following the herd on this side and jumping into the fray. So it doesn't hurt for us to sit back, take a deep breath, and carefully look over how we know what we know and why we think what we do. So where do we start? Well, last night we just started at the beginning, separating the difference between what is an argument and what is just arguing. See, a lot of what we do is they're not real arguments. They're just two people come together. They throw out ideas that both of them already know what's going to be said. Both of them already have their views when they start. Both of them all have the same views when they leave. Both of them get hot around the collar and red around the neck and the face, and their voices get loud, and they go on for who knows how long, and then when they're done, they leave, and we think that's an argument. There's nothing that is formally an argument in that. That's just two people arguing. A real, potentially fruitful argument has two parts to it. It has a premise and it has a conclusion. Every real argument has a conclusion to it. That's what the argument's all about, is to make something happen. Now, you may want to help someone reinforce the ideas they already hold. You may want to have somebody change an idea they have for a new idea. You might want to give some information in such a way that a person becomes more thoughtful about an issue. My conclusion in this series of critical thinking is to bring a little bit more peace into our world. I mean, probably not a lot more peace and probably not a very big world, but at least in my little corner of the world, to get people from stop sticking their fingers in their ears, getting red and yelling at each other, and start dialogue and thinking with each other. See, that would be the purpose of it. But if you don't have some sort of purpose, it's not an argument. That is, if week after week after week, I hash over the same things, the same points, the same types of what we might call arguments, but I never intend on changing my mind. I'm never open to new things, and I don't intend on anybody else changing their mind. I already know they're not open to new things. I'm just sort of exercising my lungs as I learn how to, breathe heavy and get hot. I'm just arguing. There is nothing in that is a quality argument. It's just two people that argue. If there's not something, a goal for it, if there's not a conclusion to it, you're just beating the air with your lips, huh? Oh, while I'm at it, let me also add that you are under no obligation to get yourself involved or even be a participant or even someone watching from the sidelines, people just arguing for the sake of arguing. Just stay away from it. Don't feel bad about staying away from it. Okay, that's probably all I need to say about conclusions. I probably need to say a little more about premises. The premise is the support for the conclusion. It's the why of the conclusion. If I say, my car, you can't use my car, that's a statement. That's just saying, no, you can't use my car. If I say, my brakes are out, that gives support and you know why you can't use my car. I might say, you need to vote for this candidate. Okay, why do I need to vote for that candidate? If you know enough about those candidates, you ought to know enough why I should vote. If I say you ought to believe what I believe on this issue, then the premise comes in, why should I believe what you believe on that issue? Now, a conclusion, an argument is only as strong as the premise. And a premise is not very strong if it's not supportable. So if I say, oh, you ought to vote for this candidate because, and then I rattle off a bunch of things. I said this in class. I once was talking on to a person that says, you need to believe this because, and the person gave some really good sounding facts and figures and numbers and reasons why that I should follow their view. And they were things I had never heard before. And so I told the person, we were on the internet, emailing back and forth in a group, and I was like, I've not heard this stuff. Where did you get the data? I want to follow up on this. I want to know what you're talking about. Because, I mean, it was enough to make me seriously think, and not enough to sway my views exactly then, but enough to make me think and take it into consideration. And everything just got quiet. And I found out later that this person had just invented all of those figures. They sounded good. He was pretty good with his speech, and everything was just kind of invented to back up what he said. that is not a solid premise. Or sometimes you get this sort of a gasp, like, you ought to vote for my candidate. Well, I think I'm going to vote for the other. You can't do that. That's not a premise. Well, you ought to vote for my candidate. You ought to believe my view because those dirty, rotten, filthy, stinking, whoever they are, you can't be one of them. Okay, those are just ways to overpower you. Those are different ways to trick you. Those are different ways to intimidate you, to bully you. If a person has a reason and they know the reason and why the reason, then they ought to be able to articulate that as a premise to help support their idea. And whether you agree with it or whether you don't agree with it, at least the two of you have sat down, you've talked it over, and you know their premises. But if they can't do that, you're in an intimidation, you're in trickery, you're not in a real productive argument. And you're under no obligation to be tricked by tricksters. I can almost hear somebody say, hey, look, Buster, this goes both ways, and it certainly does. You need to be careful when you listen to arguing that there's a real solid argument. There's a real reason, a real premise behind it, and not just sort of cultural, movement going on, but that you are given the freedom to think through it. But when you talk to others and you have your favorite candidate, you have your views about ethics or morality or religion, or you have your views about just about anything, that you have a reason for what you believe too. And that you can articulate that without getting hot around the collar and sit down and share back and forth because you owe them the same respect. So there you have it. There wasn't a whole lot to it last night. It was fairly simple. We just started off our class on critical thinking for Christians by saying that we need to learn to separate solid arguments from people that are just arguing about things in a non-productive way. And the best way to begin separating the two is to realize that a solid argument has a premise. That's the support, the reasons, has a premise to build to a conclusion. That's the goal that we want out of this project, out of this argument. So if it doesn't have a premise, if it doesn't have a goal, a conclusion, it's not a good argument. I could go further and say if it starts using a lot of loaded emotional speech, or if it uses a lot of support premises that can't be backed up, that are a little bit tricky, it may be an argument, sort of, but it's not a good one because an argument's only as good as the premise, as strong as the premise. So that's about it. This is the middle of the week. We have a few days left ahead of us. Very possibly, some of you that are watching this on YouTube or watching this on our church's Facebook will come across arguments, when both arguments and arguing. And may God give you the wisdom to be able to tell the difference. May God give you the grace to be able to coolly and calmly articulate what you believe and why you believe without getting caught up in an emotional roller coaster that's going nowhere. May your eyes be opened to the arguing and simplistic anger all around us and help you not be part of that from now until at least next Sunday when we're able to meet with each other once again. And may God bless you this week.